Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep. What company do you keep?
Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. We are excited again to be here to talk about such an important topic. Please make sure that you're tuning in from listenvisionlive.com. And of course, you have our number if you want to call in, 833-202-TALK. I am Dr. Sharon Cradle, and I am the oldest of this dynamic duo.
And I am Sherelle Higgins, and I am the favorite of this dynamic duo.
And then we have, of course, Dr. Mildred Payton on the end. You should be familiar with her. She was on our show a couple weeks ago talking about workplace bullying. And today we're going to have a serious conversation about children and bullying. So please, all of our social media followers, tag your family and friends, because this is a topic that's really, I guess, running rampant.
It is.
And it really has been around a long time. But we're going to talk about it and try to give you some information and some tools that you'll be able to use if your child is the bully or experience being bullied.
And I'm going to be the one that's going to bring it to you from the south side. I'm sitting in between two doctors. I'm going to let them do the doctor thing. And I'm going to bring it to you from the inner city side. Yeah, there you go. I'm probably going to make some inappropriate comments. I'm just going to warn you now.
And I'll help her out. I'll try to bring her back home. How about that, Dr. Clay? Yeah. And so, we always start off with scripture because today is Sunday, right? And it's the day that the Lord has made. We're going to use Leviticus 19 and 18. And it says, "You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the sons of your own people, but shall love your neighbors as you love yourself."
Yes.
And I would like to start there because I believe that that's part of the problem. Well, we're talking about this whole topic of bullying, that the bully perhaps is struggling with some of their own issues.
Yes.
Of maybe not feeling love, whatever it may be. And so we always bring experts on to talk about things that we don't necessarily have an expert lens on. And so let's welcome Dr. Mildred Payton back. We really appreciate you coming again.
Thank you for having
Please
me.
remind our audience of who you are.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Mildred Payton, America's bullying expert. I specialize in school and workplace bullying. I am also the founder and president of Payton Consulting, LLC, and I'm also a national children's author on school bullying. Here are my books right here.
Yes.
Sophia Writes to Her Bully and A Bully on a School Bus.
Oh, wow.
They are both available on Amazon, online, and Barnes & Nobles. And my company basically specializes in just helping corporations, organizations, and schools and individuals deal with bullying issues and learn how to prevent those type of behaviors from happening.
I'm disappointed that I was not here when you came the first time to talk about workplace bullying, because I probably would have had some inappropriate comments to say about that too.
Right.
But that's okay. I'm gonna get them in anyway.
All right, you're going to make up for it.
Yes. And so what we want to do, of course, is always set the foundation by starting off by defining what these terms mean. Okay.
Absolutely.
And from your professional experience and understanding, what does the term bully mean?
So a bully is a person who intentionally wants to harm someone, whether it's mentally, physically, or emotionally. The person's goal is to inflict some sort of pain or or just ill feelings against another individual, technically to make themselves feel better.
Right.
Or they're just trying to project whatever feeling or discomfort that they're experiencing in their personal lives. So that's what a bully is.
So, but how does it manifest itself? You know, what type of behaviors do you see out of them when they're trying to exert themselves onto someone that they perceive to be weaker than they are?
Yes, and that can look like in so many different ways. A bully can project physical attacks.
Yes.
Or they can use verbal attacks towards their target, and they can just do things again just to harm the person, whether it's physically, emotionally, or mentally. And sometimes kids are being they're being pushed around, they're being punched, or they're being tripped. I know a lot of times in my study, when I was doing my study at the time, most kids were being tripped on the school bus.
Wow.
They were being pushed in the corner. Sometimes it's very physical, but other times it's the silent ones, the ones that you don't necessarily see directly that's happening. So you have the verbal, and then you have the cyberbullying now,
Right.
which they go online and they target their victims that way. Yeah.
So then what is the difference between, children who are just having a conflict or one that's being bullied? What's the difference between those two?
The huge difference is, and I had to tell a principal this one time when my youngest daughter was being targeted, I had to make it clear, like, well, if this was, just a normal interaction going on here, she wouldn't feel threatened. So
Right.
if the individual feels threatened and they feel like some sort of harm is going to be done to them, then that's a clear indication right there that that's bullying. So when it's a peer conflict, both individuals are engaged in the behavior, and there's no threat, particularly there's no threat. But even if there's a threat, then that's a peer conflict.
Right.
But when one person is dominating the other, then that's a clear indication that it's bullying, because one person is more powerful than the other individual, whether it's by size or intellect or whatever have you. One person is dominating the other individual, so therefore they are threatened.
Right. And so why are we talking about this? We know that this is National Bullying Prevention Month.
Absolutely.
And so anytime an issue has a whole month attached to it, that lets you understand how significant it is, right?
Yes.
Right. And so can you talk to us about how did we get here? How did we get here to this whole month being dedicated to bullying prevention?
Let me just answer that question, and I'm gonna let you answer.
Okay.
I think we got here because somebody came up with a zero tolerance level for, concept for bullying, and that made put the kids in a position where they couldn't defend themselves. And if you're being bullied, then you defend yourself, right? Then you're part of the problem.
Right.
But when you're just being bullied, the school system, they don't have the tools or the resources they need to deal with the bullies. The parents are not dealing with their child being a bully, and so they, it just got out of hand.
Yes, that's a very good aspect that you just brought up. It is out of hand. We're seeing a rise in this issue on a daily basis. In my day-to-day work as a professional and as a parent, I hear so much on this issue that it's becoming very overwhelming. So my thing is, both the schools and the parents have to play their role.
Right.
One person is not responsible for this issue. Both parties, both sides have to be really clear and intentional in making sure that they are really enforcing the policies and just laying emphasis that this behavior is not acceptable.
Well, one of the things we know for sure, and you all have probably heard me say this every other show, that all behavior is predicated on something. And so I don't believe that children just wake up and say, I'm going to be a bully today.
Right.
I believe that it's an expression of something that's not going right for them, whatever that is. And so would you agree? And if so, what are you seeing when you get to the, underneath the iceberg sort of, in terms of what's happening with kids?
Absolutely. That's a very good observation. In my studies and in previous studies, we see that, kids who are bullying their peers, it's coming from a place, again, from frustration, from pain, from anger. And sometimes they're experiencing domestic violence at home.
Yes.
They could be experiencing, financial difficulties.
Yes.
So whatever is going on in the household, most of the times they project that frustration and lack of control on their peers. So it's, so when we're talking about bullying, we don't want to just focus on the victims.
Correct.
We definitely want to focus on the perpetrator as well, because if their issue are also addressed and we get to the core and the bottom timeline of what's going on with them, then we'll see less and less of the behavior being projected onto their peers.
Exactly.
And also the victims usually have low self-esteem.
Yes.
And so that plays a big part. And so when you have low self-esteem as a child, and it just keeps perpetuating itself as you get older, and at some point as parents, we have to work with our children to ensure that they have self-esteem and understand their value.
Yes,
right? Because when my kids were younger, I used to take them in the basement and say, let me show you how we gonna do it. So if somebody hit you, come on, show me what you got. Put them up. Let's go. Defend yourself.
Exactly.
And we used to practice because I'm like, we're not having this. And so, and I knew, and I told my kids, and I know that if you defend yourself, because we will not start it, but we will finish it. But if you defend yourself and you get in trouble at school, don't worry about it. I got you.
A lot of my peers and I grew up that way. Our parents, kind of just instilled that in us. Like, you don't start an issue, but if you have to protect yourself and someone is assaulting you, then you have to protect your body. You have to protect your private space. And I just want to piggyback on what you said earlier about, the whole, you took your child out to the basement and say, okay, show me what you're going to do. There's a lot of karate programs out here right now that are incorporating anti-bullying policies and teaching kids how to defend themselves in case, they're, being bullied. Exactly. So a lot of programs out here, again, karate programs, they are teaching kids how to really defend themselves if they're being bullied at school or on their way to school or wherever, they are.
I wanted my kids to know how to do it from the South Side.
I know, I was about to say that. Because when we were growing up, they were like, you better go outside and handle your business. And they're going to lock the door and they ain't letting you in until you do what you got to do. And I was thinking about that, and I had 2 fights in my life. And I was thinking about that today. And it was because there were 2 bullies. One, and both of them had the audacity to come to my house.
Wow.
And my mom was like, you better go out there and handle your business. And and you just get angry, right? You're angry. You're probably fearful, anxiety. And, you got, 2 girls fighting each other, as teenagers or, preteens or whatever we were, and it's just vicious.
It's vicious.
It was vicious. And it was like, it was you better do it before they kill you. Seriously, that kind of mindset. And it's ridiculous.
And you might not win, but make sure they don't want to come back.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know how you determine when, but they never came back.
I don't know. You must have won.
And I couldn't point those girls out today.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? It's so sad.
Yeah. And nowadays, it's escalated in such a severe way where, it's a lot of violence that's involved.
It is violence.
So it's like, you just want to make sure the right tools and programs and people are in place to prevent it from getting to that point. Because it's really could be a life and death situation, and we really don't want that. We don't want our children in that situation.
Exactly.
And so how do parents find the balance though? Because like if you grew up in a house like mine, where you were told that you better fight, but and you go to school or you grow up in a house where your parents say, well, no fighting, don't hit, and you go to school and somebody's hitting on you and the child has been taught. How do you find that balance? What do you say to parents who have that mindset?
It's definitely a thin line. Again, from my perspective is, when it comes to protecting yourself, if someone is aggressively attacking you and you are, you're in danger, you have to protect yourself. I mean, that's just the obvious. That's just the reality.
Right.
You can't stand there and allow someone to pound on you and just abuse you in that way. It's just not right. I watched a video a few weeks ago. It was a case in California that came up again. It was a lawsuit. The boy he was being choked to death. I mean, he actually suffered brain injury shortly after that. The teacher walked past and, she looked, observed, and then she continued to walk in.
Oh,
So
no.
this was a major issue. So, in that case, that poor boy, I don't know who told him that, it was okay to just sit there and just, be choked to death, but it was just completely inappropriate. So in situations like that, you cannot sit there and just give your body to someone who is basically about to kill you.
Exactly. And the teacher thing, I can imagine from my experience being in the school system is that we were taught that we could not touch children or even break up a fight. you know, because you can hurt yourself, you can hurt the child, and then of course you can be sued, right? And so they would have these crisis intervention folks in the building to try to, you know, they were the ones that were trained to, you know, break up the fights. And so now you have teachers, like, I don't even know if they know what to do. I think instinctively some teachers would go in, but they've been told, you don't break up fights.
Don't intervene.
Isn't that something?
It is. It's it's a sticky situation, you know. It's very delicate, and again, you know, we just want to make sure we have the right preventative measures in place, the right tools, the right individuals who are going to be able to, you know, be trained well enough to address this issue. And the kids also have to understand that, like you said,
they better not be on the other side of the building when it go down.
Right.
Because you know that's what's going to happen, right? They're going to be on the other side of the building when it goes
When it's
down,
happening.
and somebody's child is unfortunately being attacked.
Right.
And so they better have somebody on each side of the building.
And, you know, it just is interesting because, most times when this is happening, as soon as the victim is now, you know, I guess trying to defend themselves,
right,
all of a sudden
right,
that's when,
right,
you know, it's a problem. We see the issue.
Yeah.
But all along when the child is trying to bring it to your attention and saying,
right,
I'm being bullied, or, you know, whatever's going on, just bringing it to an adult's attention, it's being kind of like ignored.
Right.
You know, I experienced that on a personal level with my daughters.
Right.
You know, I felt like the issue was being downplayed. You know, I had all the evidence, all the communication that was going on, but it was so much, it was just such a lackadaisical, you know, just mentality where it's like, okay, well, we're going to look into it, we're going to get to it. But in the meantime,
right,
my child was still being attacked, you know, physically attacked while you're going through your protocols.
When you showed up at that school, they ain't know you were the bullying specialist.
I don't understand. It was very clear. That's my expertise. But you know, I am being.
Oh shucks, now here comes the bullying specialist. We better to get this under control.
I'm like, what else do you need to see? What else do I need to tell you? You know, this is what's been going on. I've communicated this to you several times, and you're trying to tell me this is pure conflict, or they're just children being children. Because at the time, my daughter was in the first grade. Oh, they're just first graders. It's not really considered bullying. Well, bullying can happen on any level.
Exactly.
I had to do a training to a group of teachers at a preschool center because luckily they recognized that this was a bullying issue, even though these kids were only in preschool, not even in kindergarten.
Right.
So bullying doesn't have an age limit.
No.
It's a behavior. Again, if the individual recognizes what they're doing, their goal is to harm someone else, intentionally put fear on that person, it's considered bullying. There's no age limit to that.
Exactly. So let's take off your specialist hat, right? Okay. And let's talk about it from a parental perspective.
Yeah.
Because how do you then not just get so frustrated with the process and not just be like, okay, well, at the school, because I know me, I'd be like, okay, I tell you what, this is what we about to do. The very next time little Johnny roll up on you, I'll need you to smack the hell out of him first. And then that way we can come back together and then we can talk about it. Because you obviously don't want to talk about it right now before it happened. But little Johnny about to get the hell smacked out of him. So how do you not go there?
Right. And a lot of parents I worked with, and even in my studies, you know, they felt that frustration, they felt the anger. And even myself as a parent, it was really frustrating trying to get through to administrators like, you know, this is a serious situation. My child feels threatened. She's concerned. She's complaining every single day. So my thing is just be persistent. You know, put your foot down. Don't give up. Be persistent and emphasize that, you know, these are the next steps you're going to take. You're going to go up the chain of command, whether you have to speak to the superintendent, go through the board of education, talk to
those
whoever,
board meetings.
Continue to climb up the ladder until the issue is addressed. And and this is where it gets really hard because again, while you're doing all of that, your child could still be, you know, being targeted, and that's the scary part because we experienced that. So you know. I know my husband, he got so fed up. He was like, you know what? That kid kicks you again. You make sure you defend yourself. And the minute she did that, that's when they said, oh, but we saw on the camera that she, you know, hit him. I said, well, I brought it to your attention all the other times, you know, prior to her finally defending herself. And the reason why the boy kept doing it, because he was getting away with it. They weren't addressing the issue quickly enough. And, you know, it just kind of put my daughter in such a very she was in a victimized situation because she has a very strong personality. She's a no nonsense. But when she's trying to follow the rules of the school and not hit back, and we're trying to be as patient as possible and telling her, okay, we're going to address this issue, we're supporting you, and in the meantime it's still being drawn out, it just made her feel so weak and more vulnerable. But and it's not right, because she's trying to abide by the rules. Meanwhile, the bully doesn't care about the rules. And that's where the issue is.
Like they're getting away with it.
And they're getting away with it. So we need to make sure we address the issue promptly. Don't drag our feet. When a child say, hey, someone is attacking me or, constantly harassing me, we need to pay attention to it, because this is what leads to some of the shootings in the schools. Most times when you look back in either 98 or 99 in Columbine, the kids they weren't being listened to. No one was listening to them. So they go into this mindset that nobody cares. This issue is going to continue, and it's up to me to make sure I put an end to it. And it should not have to come to that point.
So does either gender, who's considered the bully the most in gender wise, or is it kind of equal now, the same?
I know most of the studies I came across, it was more so the males. Boys were more so the aggressors than the girls. But it's definitely something that's shifting now a lot more. We see it so more on social media with the YouTube. Girls are fighting, and you see it everywhere online. But originally, it's the boys who are more so the aggressive, and they're more the ones who start the bullying.
Considered the bullying. Yeah. And so the reason I asked that question was because I was thinking, just in the mind of some households, some parents would tell their children, just suck it up. You're being weak. Don't whine. Right. So, and I think that perpetuates some of that. And children just don't have the mental, the frontal lobe, the mental capacity to make those kind of decisions.
Absolutely.
And so, oftentimes they're just put into a position, right?
And everyone's threshold is different.
Exactly.
Some kids may have a higher tolerance level to accept certain things, or just have more patience. But every child's mindset is not as strong, or it's not. It's not one size fit all. So you have to be. You have to understand the child that you're dealing with, understand their personality, know what their weaknesses are, and just and work with them. But to tell a child just suck it up, I think those days are really over. We need to really just retire that mentality. You can't tell a child just suck it up and get over with it, or just toughen up. You cannot do that. These kids nowadays, they're internalizing the issue in such a different way.
They are.
And again, we have the internet, we have social media. So to them, it's like the issue is still going to linger, because it just stays online, and they're embarrassed. It's a big humiliation.
And I believe, so as you say, the children internalize it. I was just thinking about the two situations I explained to you in terms of where I got some of who I am from. You can't get in my space. Right. That didn't come from just out the blue. Right. That came from a place of protecting myself. Right. This whole emotion. We're going to talk about the different types of bullying in a minute. Absolutely. But just a lot of things that you think about, and bullying happens across the country. I don't think it matters socioeconomic status, who your parents are, who they're not. It just happens.
It just happens. Unfortunately, it's a sad part of human nature. There's always going to be those group of people who want to overpower you. They want to dominate you. They want to have control over you. So that's always going to be there. But again, we have to go back to understanding what type of tools do we have in place to make sure that we're addressing this issue correctly, because it's always going to be there.
So we're going to talk about tools, but I want to talk about what are the types of bullying. I know you mentioned cyber, and give us the 4, and then let's start with cyber.
Right. So the main 4 types of bullying that we usually come across or address is cyberbullying, which basically is a bullying that the type of bullying that happens online. It can happen via text, the internet, social media platforms, by phone, or it's just happening digitally. And what happens is the perpetrator or the aggressor will use their devices or means of online information to target their victim. So that's cyberbullying. And then we have the physical bullying, cyberbullying, which is where someone comes up to you and, they either punch you or shove you, or, they just, physically attacking you.
Right.
And then you have the verbal, where they're
God.
just verbally abusing you,
Just
being very
verbally abusive.
derogatory,
Yes.
condescending, and and they just attacking you in a very verbally explicit way. And then you also have a social or relational, whereas they and this book pretty much covers it, where it's yes. Where social or relational bullying is you're being isolated from a group on purpose, whether it's because of how you look or what you dress like, but you're being purposely isolated because they don't want you to be part of their group.
Exactly. And so let's dig into this cyberbullying a little bit more,
let's
because
talk about that.
this whole connection with cyberbullying and suicide. We know that, a lot of teenagers or children, not just teenagers, children are committing suicide because they don't have the capacity or the tools to be able to deal with this whole cyberbullying thing.
Right.
And are you working with more and more cases like that?
I mean, not at this time, but
Okay.
I do read a lot on that. Almost
Okay.
on a weekly or daily basis,
Right.
there's a new case that comes out that a child just took their lives because of suicide or being bullied.
Right.
And recently, I was featured in New York Times where we talked about that. We talked about a child in New Jersey who lost her life due to bullying, and now the mother is pushing for a law because it's just becoming very rampant, and we need to really put a stop to it. We have 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds.
Yeah, that is just amazing.
I can't even fathom the
can't-
idea
yeah,
that a 9-year-old would, let alone an adult,
Right.
try to take their life away. But it just goes to tell you how when the issue is not being properly addressed and they feel helpless and hopeless, they feel like there's no way out.
Right.
And this is the only way they're going to put an end to it.
Right.
Right.
And you mentioned Columbine and those students, but just imagine, those students growing up, right? They become these adults that we say they are. And that's why we're seeing a lot of things out of adults, because they have not, their issues or their pain
Yes.
hasn't been resolved.
Hasn't been resolved.
And I'm going to tell you all something, no plug for the movie, but The Joker, that's a conversation. There were so many, to me, talking points around mental health, around abuse of children, and how when you don't manage that or help children to get through that, what could possibly happen?
Yes.
I mean, but we, as
Yes.
parents, we know, right? We we have a hard time. Some of us, not me, not my house, but there's a lot of houses where the parents have a hard time managing the child, right?
That's
and
true.
and then it
That's
just,
true.
It started out cute, right?
Right.
And then they grow up, and then next thing you know, it's not cute no more, and it's out of control. And then you send them into the school, and you expect the school to take care of the problem, and then the child comes home, and there's no boundaries.
Right.
And so when you have that situation, and because somebody at the school has at least told you at
Yes.
least once
Yes.
that your child is the problem, but the parents take the child's side and defend the child to no end, which helps the child continue the bad behavior.
Yes.
And so, as parents, we got to do better.
We have to do
we got to
better.
set boundaries at the house. So when they go into the school, they know what boundaries are, and they know the consequences of not following those boundaries.
Absolutely. And you made the key word you just said, there's consequences.
Oh,
and
yes.
that's why we're seeing the behavior just perpetuates, because if there's no consequences, if no one is taking it seriously, we're going to continue to see this. It's going to continue to escalate because we are not really addressing it the way we need to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know before we came on air, we were talking about the little girl who accused those white boys of,
Cutting her locks.
yeah,
Right.
holding her down and cutting the locks. And then she came later to admit that was not the truth.
Right.
But when you read the articles, there was some bullying. And it's just going to be really interesting to see. First of all, that's just a great example of what happens when children are being bullied and nothing is being done. And I just wonder if that baby had told anybody in the school. And again, they just ignored it.
Right.
It's a private school. It's a Christian-based school. So I can only imagine some of the conversations in there. Love your neighbor. This is what we just read.
Right.
Love your neighbors as yourselves. But everybody is not agreeing to that.
Right.
And they're doing those things. So I don't know if you know anything about that story and just that situation.
Absolutely. I followed the story intensively, and like you and everybody else, we were pretty shocked to learn that, those were false accusations. But I also said to myself, I said, I still believe that she's crying out for help.
Yes.
I still feel like there's something else going on for her to take such an extreme measure.
Right.
And, lie in that capacity to say that, such thing happened. But not to say that I'm not trying to make her out to be,
No,
full victim
'cause
or
she's
say
a
that
ba-
she's
no, she's a
innocent.
child.
A lie is a lie, and it's still not acceptable. But we also still have to go back to, why did she lie?
Right.
What was going on, to get her to that point?
Right.
So it's like, I know I read one point where she it mentioned in an article that she was being bullied, and she was told that don't talk about it, just
Right.
just pray.
Pray about
just
it.
pray about it. This is a private school.
Yeah.
Well,
If he put
Well, we
his
can't-
hands on me one more
well,
time.
we know sometimes some
Exactly.
prayers take a long time to be answered.
No, but prayer
And
without
when-
action, without work is what? Dead.
Lord, if he
And,
put his hands on me one more time,
And
I'm
I
going to turn
just-
this school out.
But so again, unfortunately, it was a lie. But I strongly believe this young girl is still crying out for help, and
That part
needs
was
to
a
be-
lie, holding her
Yeah.
down and cutting
Yes.
her braids off, perhaps.
Yes.
But the fact that she was experiencing something was real.
Was real, yes.
Right.
Prior
and
to all of that,
exactly.
yes.
And what we tend to do is we tend to look at the victim
Mm-hmm.
when like you were talking about, when the victim lashes out,
Yeah.
or we want to ask them, well, why, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What did you do to cause this?
did
No,
you do?
nobody has a right to put their hands on you.
Yeah.
They just
Yes.
don't.
Yes.
And when we were talking about cyberbullying, when I took my kids in the basement to show them how to fight, to protect themselves, I also taught my kids how to verbally protect themselves.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, so
yes.
if somebody say this to you, what you gonna say back?
We do that all the time.
Yes.
I'm teaching them how to be resilient.
Yes.
And I teach just how to just use your intellect and just talk your way out of it. We do that. We role play. I said, if this, like you said, if they say this to you, you say this back. You don't have to be rude and nasty, but you're gonna.
Yes, you do.
You're gonna say it in such a tactful, slick way that they're gonna have no choice but to say, "Oh, I'm messing with the wrong one."
Well, you know what? I wanted them to do it from their age perspective, right? Not from my age perspective. So that's why I'm like, if they say this to you, what you gonna say?
Right.
Because that might be what we need to find too. And I need them to. And now my kids, they quick with the words, right?
Yes,
So if
yes.
somebody say something to them, they own it. I'm like, all right. Even me sometimes. I'm like, shut up, or I'll smack you in your mouth.
Yeah.
But we got to teach our kids how to defend themselves verbally,
Yes.
right? So that when people say you ugly, at my house, I say you tell them they mama, right? Because that way we gonna just get down to it, right? There ain't no sense of shucking and jiving. You done came at me. So now I'm gonna come back, and now what we gonna do with it?
Yeah, I always tell especially my oldest, I said, what, and you say it with a smile. You say it with a smile. You're getting your point across, but you just say it with a smile on your face, and you keep it moving.
Right.
But and she's really good at it. She's very petite, like myself, but she understands that she's valuable, and no one is going to
Exactly.
take advantage of her, and she's
Yeah.
going to stand up for herself. And she's going to let the person know, hey, don't talk to me this way, or it's just she's going to bring it to someone's attention, but she's not just going to sit there and accept being mistreated.
Right. And bullies' ultimate goal is to have power over someone and to
Yes.
control someone.
Yes.
And that need to be in, power, have that power and control
Yes.
is deep rooted.
Yes.
Right.
It's deep rooted.
Yeah, and they target those who they feel that are
Yes,
weaker than
weaker.
them, who are not going to, retaliate or speak up. So that's what they do. So and I just want my children to know, and all kids out there, you don't have to put yourself in that situation where you're someone thinks that you're weak, and even if they think that you're weak, you have to prove them wrong, and let them know that you're valuable.
So are there any, so you talked about tools for the school. So can you be specific about that so that our listening audience can understand what type of tools are in place for schools to be able to access to help mitigate some of this?
So, from my understanding, I know schools have some programs that they run. You know, they have whether it's after school program or something during like peer conflict resolution type programs.
Right.
Because I know when I was doing my internship, that was one of the programs I facilitated. It was a mentoring peer
Right.
group where we worked with the bullies and with the victims.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
it was more so the victims that we were really focused on because they were the ones really coming up to us and wanted to help. But we have to have these resources in place. More so specifically, we need to have specialists in every school.
Yes.
We need to make sure that the counselors are not overwhelmed with non-bullying behaviors. That the teachers are not overwhelmed, because what we're seeing is teachers are so focused on the
Overwhelmed,
academic
yes.
aspect that they don't really want to take the time to address those other behaviors, in which they really have to, because the nature of bullying has evolved in so many different levels that with this new change, we have to have new systems in place to address this change in the behavior. So we have to make sure we have, again, individuals who are focused specifically in this area, as myself, who can just focus on this area and make sure we're addressing it and we're not sweeping it under the rug or being overwhelmed, because we know that is our primary job, is to make sure we address bullying issues.
And I'm curious. So what tools are available for schools to work with the parents of the bully?
Right.
Because
The ones in
the
denial.
ones
I
in
want the
denial,
ones that's in
and the
denial.
ones in
I want to know what
denial.
we're doing with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another issue. You
Right.
have those parents who are like, "Oh, not my child," or there should be something in place. Whether it's a workshop, seminar, but there should be something in place where the bullies who are causing the problem or whatnot, those parents have to attend some sort of mandatory training
Right,
where
right.
they're able to understand how to interact and communicate to their child, and teach them how to treat their peers.
Right,
So
right.
there should be, those things should be in place, not only for the victims, but also for the ones who are causing the problem. So parents need to be held accountable. They need to be engaged in what's happening and what their child is doing.
And we live in such a violent culture in the United States of America, and then we have our top leadership in this country who displays bullying behavior,
Every
right?
day.
And so when you have
See, he ran up
leadership,
on the right one.
right? When you have leadership that displays this kind of behavior, and people are looking. They're like, I'm looking to validate that what I'm feeling and what I'm doing is right. So this is okay for me to display this type of behavior.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as adults, we're supposed to be role model for kids. Kids, we have to model what we want them to be like.
Right.
So, like you said, if we have top leadership
Yes.
or parents who are, carrying themselves in a certain way,
Right.
Then you're only communicating to the child that it's okay to behave this way. So what are you going to tell a child who is a bully? Like, well, you can't really say much in a sense, because it's like, this is what they see. They
Right.
look at it as acceptable.
I had a lady call me one day this week, and she was telling me about another lady that she knows. And this other lady, she has a son who's 18 years old. And this 18-year-old is out of control. And so she was asking me, what do I think she should do? I said, well, she need to put him out, right? And get a restraining order against him. And
Is he physically abusive to the mother?
he's not physically abusive that I know of, but he's out of control.
Yeah.
He's doing stuff like she make her lunch, he take it outside, throw it outside.
goodness.
Look at y'all face. So it's stuff like that.
He's experienced something.
And so he's in control right now, in control of her and her emotions. And so I was saying to her, I said, well, she could put him out, and that's what they told her when she called the police on him. They was like, you
Because he's
give him
18.
the eviction notice and
Wow.
put him out. And then she was like, and this lady has a younger child in the house, and they are afraid that this older child is going to be doing something to this younger child when mom's not around. And so I said, well, look, just tell her to put him out. And then she was like, well, he might be, like lurking around when I come home. I said, well, she have a garage for her car? And they were like, yeah. I said, okay, well, tell her to, look around before she gets out, pull in the garage, and then close the door. And if she see him out there, get her a bat. And if he roll up on her, she need to handle her business. Self-defense. That's
Wow.
it. And be done with it, because at 18, it's too late now.
Yeah,
He is already out of control. That thing, his behavior has been out of control for a long time, I'm imagining.
I'm sure it didn't just start just now.
No, right.
Something's
Right.
been brewing.
Just start.
Yeah.
But he's giving a message.
He's giving a message.
No doubt.
Yes.
He's giving a message that something has happened. Something
Yes.
is going on.
Yes.
That and now this anger. And so then what we do is look at the 18-year-old. So yeah, you have to do something with them, but we have got to start dealing with what's really happening with
happening.
folks before they get to where this
Right.
18-year-old
Yes, absolutely.
is.
Yes.
And it's so sad and it's scary.
Yeah. And if
That's
it's not,
back to creating them boundaries at the house when they're younger.
Yeah.
That
And
goes back to that.
adults stop doing things that they do to children.
Yes, absolutely.
And allowing things to happen to children without protecting them. So
Right.
that when a child is violated in some kind of way, and you
Right.
know this, Doctor, early, if it is not addressed,
yes.
those feelings in terms of, I like what you said, how they internalize stuff, you know, and then you wonder when your daughters, when they get older, your sons, when they get older, they meet other adults that they're going to have a relationship with, and all kind of baggage start coming out.
Exactly. They're taking that on to
Yeah.
that relationship or
Exactly.
that friendship.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate because, like you said, you know, when it goes unchecked and
Right.
this issues are not addressed early on, it carries on into adulthood. And that's a problem. We're either going to see it in the workplace or we're
Yeah.
going to see it in our marriages.
Yeah.
And that's where we're talking about domestic violence. And this is also
It
domestic
is
violence
domestic
awareness
violence.
month.
It is.
So,
Bullies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm pleased about, there's a lot of research about the college level now that I want to tell you two things. The college level, that they are really putting money towards bringing counselors into the college setting to make sure that students are adjusting, because students come to college with so much.
So much.
Yes,
That
I mean-
first year can be very, you know,
Yes.
just, you know, a lot of anxiety. Can
I
happen.
remember there was a college, I want to say it was in Massachusetts, I can't remember, New Hampshire, where the college was located next to a bridge. And students would go over there and jump off the bridge and commit suicide. And they put a net up eventually. I don't remember the name of the college, but now they put a net up. But you can see this all over the country. And then even in states, you know, they're starting to, your state departments of education are starting to give funding to local schools to put social workers in the school
Yes.
to help with, you know, that. You know, if the counselor can't deal with it, if the principal can't deal with it, then we have another tool, another resource.
Yes.
Have you seen that in terms of them putting more resources in terms of adults like social workers in schools to help?
I know there are school social workers, you know, yes, but I'm from my understanding, it's not enough. Because
Right.
again, on a day-to-day basis, my clients, you know, and just other stories out there, there's a need. There's not enough in place, and we need to make sure that, you know, these resources, these fundings that we're getting from the federal government or state level, we need to make sure that we're really distributing them in the areas that's needed.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And they rotating them around, right? From different
Right.
schools. So the social worker is not at your school every day.
Right.
Right.
We're talking about enough resources. They're not at your school every day. So
Yes.
if your child is being subjected to bullying, they got to hope the social worker is going to be at
On
the
that
school
day.
School
on
that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, we need to make sure that, you know, we really just take it seriously. Take it seriously and just make sure these kids need what, you know, they have what they need.
So you were on Channel 9 News.
Channel 7.
Channel 7.
Yeah, ABC 7.
ABC 7.
Yes, uh-huh.
And can you talk to us about how that came about and what you discussed?
Man, how that came about. Well,
think
I
that's
met you
awesome.
lovely sisters at Dr. Avis's Master the Media
That's
Summit
right.
in May.
That's
and
right.
so, you know, we learned a couple of techniques and, strategies on how to really, you know, target the media when you have a message or service that you want to provide. So, being that, you know, this is my expertise and I'm so passionate about this topic and it's National Bullying Prevention Awareness Month. So, I reached out. I said, hey, this is what I do and I would love to create more awareness around this topic and make sure I'm being able to reach more people. And, this is what I want to speak on. So, it was, they looked at my background, said everything was okay, and just invited me to come in and say, okay, we'll love to speak with you.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So basically I pitched, what I do and that's how we came about.
Yes,
Okay.
that's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
So is there a direct correlation between parents who were bullied who were bullies. Let me ask both. Parents who were bullies and now their children are bullies, and parents who were bullied and their children are being bullied.
Yes, yes. From my recollection, when I was doing my research study, I did come across a few studies like that where it's like a pattern. You
Right.
know, it is a pattern. You know, it's something. It's like almost like a learned behavior in a sense. So it's like, you know, the parent, yes, if they experience bullying in school, growing up or whatnot, their child also may have those same characteristics that, you know, draws bullies to them. You know, so I know. I mentioned on the news that, you know, even my parents, you know, a lot of people were bullied growing up. You know, it's
Right.
again, it's part of human nature.
Exactly.
So, but
Yes.
it's just to the degree and the level in which they experience it. But so you know, I experienced bullying growing up. You know, and I know my parents have also mentioned that, and I mentioned earlier that my daughters have. But it is a correlation that, you know, if you're a child, you know, if you were bullied, then most likely your child may also experience that situation. Or if you were the bullied and you haven't really rectified those issues that, you know, made you be a bully, and your children are now seeing,
Right.
you know, those types of behaviors, they're most likely going to, you know, carry on. Because again, we're modeling certain behaviors. So, you know, our kids pick up on our habits and our, you know, our behavioral patterns.
And I get a sense that society, this is just not a big deal for society. I don't know how you feel about
I
that.
don't know why not when people shooting up the schools.
But they see that as just a gun problem, right? Or mental health. And I don't. I think it's very intricate, right? I think it's so much, and I think being bullied, you know, not, you know, taking care of those mental health needs, just, you know, the heart, you know, because hatred and you know, racism and all that, I think that's two separate things. I think it's just a myriad of issues, and I think bullying being bullied can be at the core of some of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a root, there's an underlying issue to a lot of our behaviors, and you know, again, when someone is, you know, bullying someone, they're to me, and to, you know, according to studies, they are saying there's a problem there.
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
problem. You know, so it's just a matter of who is going to take the time to say, okay, what's going on? How can I help you? How can you, you know, what can you tell me that can, you know, let me assist you, help you to get over what's happening right now? You know, it's just a matter of just someone just again understanding that, okay, this person is not just behaving this way just because they want to,
Right.
But there's a reason why they're doing
Because they
this.
can't feel good. I mean, you know, unless they're getting something from it. You know,
Right.
like I have power and I have control over you, so I'm being gratified in some kind of way. But some of the things too that we've seen is that parents, I think it goes back to what you were saying, parents get frustrated.
Yeah.
And then some parents take matters into their own hand and they go up there and fight kids.
I saw that recently.
Yeah, and I just can't. I have no words for that.
Yeah.
It's common. It's common. I know, again, when I was doing my studies, some of the parents did tell me they got so frustrated because they felt like they were being ignored by the schools, and you know, they weren't being heard. The complaints weren't being taken seriously, so they had to follow up so many times. And they got to the point they literally just waited for the parent of the bully, you know, try to confront them. And sometimes they'll even ask the principals to say, well, can the parent
yes.
join us in a meeting? And most times the
They
school will
like,
say
no.
no,
They
because
like, we're not now playing referee.
yeah, we're not going to do that.
If this
'cause
gets
it can-
out of hand, I'm not
Yes.
getting hurt.
Yeah, and so yeah, they try to draw the line there, but yeah, parents do get very frustrated, and they shouldn't have to get to that point.
Right.
They shouldn't have to get to that.
And I'm talking about
The
parents.
fighting the kids.
Yeah, going up to attack the children.
Yeah.
Yes, that's who. Again,
And
they
that's
shouldn't have
illegal.
to get to that point where
Yeah.
they feel they have to take matters into their own hands, because, you know, if they're in communication with the schools and everyone is playing their part and making sure the issue is being addressed up front, then it wouldn't have to escalate and get to that part. You know, so get to that point.
You all remember a story recently here in D.C. where two 11, 12-year-old boys had gotten into an altercation, and the stepfather shot the kid and killed the kid.
Oh yeah, the one that was running across the
Yes.
street. Yeah.
Like that.
Was that in
like-
Maryland?
I think it
That
was here
was
in
DC?
DC.
Okay.
Yeah, like so that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, my
Like
goodness.
I'm just like, come on, really?
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? And I read something recently where a mother went up to the school and was fighting the kid because the kid was bullying her child. And so when you, as a parent, and when you start doing stuff like that, when you start even formulating the idea, you got to know that you're out of control, and that is not the answer. You can't put your hands on other people's kids, and you have to learn. You just got to figure out some alternative ways to deal with it.
And that's where you need to have that partnership with the school. You need to work together, that family, school community. There has to be that communication and that level of trust where parents can feel like they're being heard, and they have some sort of, again, that partnership that someone is seeking their interest and trying to make sure the issue is resolved. Because not to justify what the parents are doing, but again, you have to understand that when there's a problem and it's not being addressed, it can just lead to so many other areas that it's really not called for.
Right, and I would imagine that the guy that shot the little kid, that he probably was saying that happened to me, and I wish somebody would have done something for me.
Wow.
That's how deep it gets.
Yeah, it gets
because
like that.
you don't know when people start reacting what they're really reacting to.
Yes.
Because he could have been stuck at age 11 when somebody bullied him and did something to him, and nobody protected him. And he probably, that self-talk, we were talking about that with Dr. Hubbard, that whole self-talk, that the person was probably saying, I wish somebody would do that to, my family member or at 11 years old, and I'm going to do this if that happens. And that self-talk is real, and
it's real.
It manifests.
Yes.
It comes out of your mouth. And it comes out in behavior. And so that's my point of really wanting to do a show like this, to really get people to just not look at the behavior and label it. Right. Yeah. And because what you start doing is you just label the person. No, you can't condone the behavior.
Right.
But this is it's just deep.
It's deep.
It's deep, and you don't know how people are internalizing experiences they've had when they were young.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Absolutely.
We have about 5 minutes left because time
Already?
goes by really quickly.
Yes.
So I'm about to do a quick rewind on y'all, and I want to talk a little bit about that workplace bullying because I missed it.
Okay.
And I just think that's an interesting concept. I see it happening in the workplace.
Yes.
I have a young lady who worked for me, and she says to me all the time, nobody messes with you. She said, I mean, nobody.
Right.
And I'm like, that's because I have a look on my face that when they come to the door, they either A, turn around and go in the other direction because they know they got some foolishness with them, or B, they come across the door and say something and I shut it down immediately. And I think, because I have a lot of self-confidence, right? So I can handle myself, but there's a lot of people in the workplace who can't. And somebody on my team went to this supervisory training, and in the training, there was somebody in the class telling a story about how one of her employees sent her a message and said to her in this message, you acting like a bitch.
Oh, goodness.
And the supervisor responded back and said, that's inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. And the girl wrote her back and said, well, if you acting like, and if you acting like a bitch, I'm going to call it like I see it.
Oh, goodness.
And I was like, oh.
This is a subordinate talking to
the supervisor.
Oh.
Yes. And so when you start talking about workplace, to me, that's workplace bullying.
Is.
Oh,
it
yeah.
is.
So I'm like, okay, so what the supervisor say next? She can get up and go to her desk. I'm thinking you're supposed to roll up on somebody at that point and be like, excuse me. Actually, after the first email, you're supposed to roll up. But, I make a joke about it, but it was serious for that supervisor. And, I think we have to be more mindful of how we interact as adults with one another, whether we're inside the workplace or not.
Absolutely.
Because that kind of
And
behavior.
that employee was probably a bully.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. Most times we see that there's the supervisor or the manager who's bullying the employee.
Right.
But there are times where, yes, the employee is the one who is, the aggressor towards the supervisor.
Correct.
So, it can go either way.
Yeah.
There's no one specific
But
person.
the funny thing is, in most workplaces, and I work in the federal government, there's no place for the supervisor to go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's
Who they gonna
nothing-
tell?
Right, there's nothing for the supervisor. The supervisor can't say she harassing me, right?
well,
The
they have to
supervisor
fix
could write
that.
them up if they can get that support from their leadership, but a lot of times you can't. And so what do? How do you handle it? You know, and so, you know, we have to do better in the workplace to make sure that supervisors are protected and feel like they have some place where they can go and get an out. Particularly when there's no consequences for the employee behaving this way. Exactly.
And I remember I worked somewhere and I didn't realize at the time that it was bullying. You know, my supervisor, I would be in a meeting with my staff, having my staff meetings, and that person would just open the door and walk into the office. So the first time I just kind of looked, I just thought it was odd, right? And I kept on going. And then the next time it happened, I said to that person, would you like for me to put you on the agenda? Because it was just and so then those type of behaviors started happening more and more where that person would send two people. You know, I call them the mafia, you know, to come and try to intimidate me. And I mean, and I wasn't even looking at it like that. You was
from the South Side.
Yeah, but I wasn't even looking at it like that.
And that's considered mobbing.
Exactly.
That's like
exactly.
mobbing. So,
yeah, I didn't even know there was a term for it. Within the group. And
bring all your friends.
Yeah. And so what I would do is handle it on the spot, but never make the connection that's what they were doing.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Workplace mobbing. That's exactly what happened there.
My goodness. Yeah. Wow.
Bring all your friends.
Yeah.
I need y'all to come together at one time.
Right.
So we can shut this down.
But this is happening a lot in the workplace.
Yeah. It is.
And even some places I've been and some coaching and some things I've done, it's just unbelievable. I was talking to someone recently who's a leader, and they were telling me about, some things that were going on in their area, and the way that person responded, that person said that they were responding to the subordinates. I had this look, I started doing like this. He was like, well, what's going on? I said, is that what you say? I mean, seriously, to your employee.
Wow.
We just have to model the behavior. And I always used to say, treat people the way you want to be treated. But some people want to be treated mean. Some people, because that's what they're comfortable and used to. So they'll do things to make you treat them that way. Or to, I don't know, I want to say make you, because people get to choose, right? But, I know that I'm going to treat you with dignity and respect. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm not because that's the way I want to be treated.
Exactly.
And we have to teach people that.
Demand to be treated.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so.
But yeah.
So your work. I know it's almost time for us to go. Where's your work mostly? In the workplace or in schools?
It's a balance. I would have to say right now it's more so primarily with the schools.
Okay.
But definitely making my way into just branching on into, of course, the corporate and government level. But definitely it's both for sure.
Okay.
But it's just so much, the need right now is so much with the schools that, I'm constantly being overwhelmed with inquiries about the schools as opposed to the workplace, even though we know that workplace bullying is also on the rise. But so I still take those two areas very,
Do you have a team or you work alone?
Right now, I work by myself.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So it sounds like you need a team.
Oh, absolutely.
So put out your information.
That's in the
just in
works.
case, yeah. So put your information out so that people can know how to get in contact with you.
Okay, absolutely. If you trying to get in contact with me, you can go directly to my website at www.drmildredpayton.com, or you can email me at welcome@drmildredpayton.com.
Well, wonderful. Yes. Wow, what a great conversation.
Yes.
Thank
Absolutely.
you so
Thank you.
much
Thank you
for
for
coming
having me
back
back.
for part 2, because
Absolutely.
I just think this is information that people really need to know and be able to apply, because I'm hoping that when people get information from our show that they're applying it to their lives, not just getting information just to sit on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you, and thank you everyone for
thank
chiming in.
And what's the score on that Bears game? Let's go.
21-17.
Oh.
The Bears.
What?
And thank you
gotta
all.
go.
Thank you,
Y'all ain't talking
Facebook
about nothing.
family and
Gotta
our
go.
social media. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all. Yeah, see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins. We
will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories